Hey, what's up? My name is Andy. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my December reading wrap up. So in the second half of December, I ended up reading 11 more books for a total of 23 for the month of December, so not too shabby. And as usual, I'm just going to go in the order in which I read. First up is Binti, Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor. This is the third and final book in the Binti trilogy. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This series follows our main character, Binti, and she is from the planet Himba. In the first book, she gets the opportunity to go to a university on Earth, which is really unheard of for her people because they don't really leave their planet. And overall, this series has a lot to say about culture, family, and there's also some mental health things that go on too. So that's kind of what happens in the first book. Like I said, this is the conclusion, so not really going to go into much plot-wise. I would consider this a pretty accessible sci-fi if you're anything like me and sci-fi kind of intimidates you. I ended up enjoying the second and third books in the series more than the first. I gave the first book 3, the second book 4 stars, and this one 4 stars as well. I did read this for the Reindeer Readathon for the prompt of Dasher, which was to read a book under 250 pages, which this whole series is really short. Next, I read Me by Elton John, which I'm so glad I did. This was amazing. I listened to the audiobook, which was not narrated by Elton John, but I felt like the narrator had a really good voice for the story. And there were a couple parts, I think in the beginning and the end, that actually were Elton John, so that was really cool. I read this also for the Reindeer Readathon for the prompt of Dancer, which was to read a book related to music or dance. I've been an Elton John fan for a while, so I really liked getting to know more about his life. And as soon as I was done with this, I immediately watched Rocket Man, which, if you haven't watched that movie, you need to because it is amazing. In this autobiography, Elton John really gets into the nitty-gritty of him becoming sober in the early 90s. And it also goes into when Versace, one of his very good friends, passed away. And then only 6 weeks later, Princess Diana died. And like, that part had me crying because I'm still not over that one, honestly. And the message at the end of the book was very hopeful, and I don't know, I just had a really good kind of feeling. It put me in a good mood when I was done. So 5 out of 5 stars, highly, highly recommend. Then I read Merry Inkmas by Talia Hibbert. This was the pick for the Dragons and Tea book club, which is hosted by Melanie, or Mel to the Any. And I recently discovered Talia Hibbert this year, so I was really excited to read more from her. This is a fairly short adult romance story. In the beginning, our main character, she is working in a coffee shop, and this mysterious, like, tall, dark, and handsome, like, really buff, tatted up guy. Like, Talia Hibbert has a type. I see you, girl. I see it. But he becomes a regular in her coffee shop, and she's like, you know, low-key getting obsessed with him. Lo and behold, things happen. She ends up quitting her job, and he gives her a job, and he is like a world-renowned tattoo artist that owns his own shop. So he gives her a job, and it's an adult romance, so, you know, things kind of go from there. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. There were themes of domestic violence and like PTSD in this, which I appreciated. But just be aware, trigger warnings for that. I think Talia Hibbert is definitely one of my like new favorite romance authors, so I'm gonna keep reading more of her backlist. Then I read Orange, Volume 2 by Ichigo Takano. And this is the conclusion to the Orange series. This was also another read for the Reindeer Readathon. I read it for the prompt Comet, which was to read a book that you think will have a big impact on you, or to read a sci-fi. And it also counted for the bonus Christmas star to read a book over 500 pages, because this thing is 523 pages. This series follows a group of friends in high school, and Basically, the premise is they get letters from themselves 10 years in the future because one of their classmates is no longer with them. And the whole point of the story is for them to try to do things differently now to change the future so that this person doesn't end up dying. I don't know if this is spoilers or not, so sorry if it is. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. I guess some of it, like, I guess was written realistically because I get like the whole social anxiety thing, but like most of the issues in this book were just because people were too scared and too timid and shy to speak. And the plot relied mostly on the fact that you can save someone from being depressed and suicidal. Like, oh, if only I can make them have a good day, or do small things that's gonna like just suddenly make them better. Like, they're trying to make situations happen that they think will make this person happy instead of, like, you know, just trying to get him to a therapist or something, you know, or getting him to a hospital. I don't know, that irked me, but not enough that I really hated it. I guess it sounds like I am kind of bashing it the more I talk. Overall, I still like this series and I felt invested, like I wanted to really know what happened, but those aspects did bother me. Then I read The Institute by Stephen King. This was my king for December. I ended up reading this for the Winter Magical Readathon because the prompt I got was to read a paranormal book or a book with ghosts. But The Institute is all about children that have the paranormal abilities of telekinesis and telepathy. And the premise of this book is these children are taken because they are discovered to have these abilities, and when they're basically drugged, and then they wake up in the institute, and when they wake up they're in like a recreated room that looks exactly like their room at home, which is creepy. The whole thing is creepy. I did end up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. It really did hold my interest for being long. Let's see how, yeah, over 500 pages. Stephen King definitely did get on his political soapbox a couple times, but it made me laugh because I agree with his opinions and I kind of liked it. I feel like he did write these younger children very well. The whole setup of the institute was very interesting and also heartbreaking. Like, these children are straight up abused, which was sad. But it ended up having a pretty like bittersweet ending, so it's not all bad. Yeah, in case I didn't say, I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up When You Ask Me Where I'm Going by Jasmine Carr. This is a poetry and there's like short bits of prose in it as well. The author is a Punjabi Sikh woman that lives in Canada. So there were a lot of themes of immigration, toxic relationships, very feminist overall, about women's bodies and women being able to make decisions about their own bodies. And while I didn't love this entire thing, I feel like it was important and a lot of it did resonate with me and was very interesting. But I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. This just came out in October and I hadn't heard about it until I saw this arc at my library. So if you haven't, definitely give this a read. The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I ended up picking this up for the Magical Readathon because the prompt I got was to read a book with flowers or plants on the cover, and I have been wanting to get to this for a while now. This is about our main character, Libby, who on her 25th birthday finds out that she's inherited a house. When she was just an infant, a lot of drama went down in this house. Her parents and a stranger were found dead upstairs. Everyone thinks they committed suicide, and she was downstairs in her crib just chilling. No one knew what happened in the house. It was like a big mystery. And in this book, you have 3 perspectives. You have Libby, a woman named Lucy, and then Henry. Libby and Lucy's chapters take place in the present day. Henry's chapters take place in the 80s / early 90s in the house, so you kind of get a background of things that happened in this house. This was definitely interesting and entertaining. I expected more kind of cult things from this for some reason, but it was more of like family dynamics and strangers kind of coming into this family and changing it, which I guess it did have some kind of like cult-ish aspects, but that's not quite what it was. This is definitely a domestic thriller. The ending and the like bit reveals were okay. They weren't like anything spectacular, but I did enjoy the ride getting there. And the way this ends, like Lisa Jewell could make a sequel to this if she wanted, but it did end well on its own. Like it definitely stands on its own and has a good completion that way, but she could do more if she wanted to. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I read this for the Reindeer Readathon for the Rudolph prompt, which was to read a book with red on the cover. This is a YA contemporary romance, and our main characters are Pepper and Jack. And the two go to high school together, but really don't like each other. Each of their families own restaurants, and there ends up being a Twitter war over a grilled cheese recipe. So don't read this if you're hungry, because it will make you hungry and make you want all the grilled cheese. The two know each other in real life, and for most of the book they don't know that the other is behind the Twitter war, because they're each like basically just tweeting from the restaurant accounts. And on top of that, Jack is an app creator, and he's created this app that people can like post and talk to each other anonymously. And the two have been talking through that app for the longest and don't know who each other are. So there was definitely some like You Got Mail type vibes here, which was adorable. And it had like a modern day twist to it. Overall, this is really what I expected. It was super cute, super like smart, funny. I liked the snarkiness and the hate to love aspect between Pepper and Jack. So we had the whole like enemies to lovers to friends, which, hello, that's the best. And I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I decided to pick up Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. A lot of people have been reading this recently because the new movie came out on Christmas, which I haven't seen, but I am a huge fan of the 1994 version with Winona Ryder, Claire Danes, Kirsten Dunst. I watched that I don't know how many times when I was little. Like I was obsessed with it. But I had never read the actual book. I feel like everyone kind of already knows the plot of this. It's a classic. I did remember how much I loved Jo. She was always my favorite character in the movie, and I really loved her in the book. So yes, I'm definitely a Jo with some Amy, I guess. But yeah, Jo's my homegirl. I did like how there were some pretty good morals in here. You can definitely tell it was a product of its time as far as the whole women and relationships are handled and discussed. But I'm guessing this might have been a little, you know, ahead of its time and a little progressive for when it came out. I don't know. I wasn't alive back then. But this was enjoyable. There were some parts where I was like, okay, like different random stories within here were whatever. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I'm really glad that I found this cool edition. And the illustrations were really nice as well. One Dark Throne by Kendar Blake. This is the second in the 3 Dark Crowns series. This is a sequel, so I'm not really going to get into plot, but basically is in this island of Finburn, the queen gives birth to triplets. And each three of the girls have their own ability. There is a naturalist, an elementalist, and a poisoner. And on their 16th birthday begins the year that they basically fight to the death until only one is standing and becomes the queen. I gave the first book in the series 4 stars, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. My favorite character is Katarine the Poisoner. She came back in this novel on a rampage, and I was totally here for it. I do have a lot of fantasy on my TBR for January, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to read the 3rd book in this series this month or not, but we're going to finish this series in 2020. It's going to happen. And last but not least, my last read of December, my last read of 2019, the last read of the decade was The God Game by Danny Toby. This was an arc that I got off of NetGalley and comes out on January the 7th. Now this is a YA like sci-fi / thriller novel, and this follows a friend group in high school that calls themselves the Vindicators, and pretty much they are like nerdy kind of like social outcasts in a way that are into science and coding and computers and gaming. And the plot takes off where they get this invite to play what's called the God Game. And basically there's this AI that calls itself God, that thinks that it is God, and has what these kids thought was just some kind of like virtual reality game that they were going to play online and have lots of fun with. But it turns out that this is more of, I guess, kind of a nerve situation where it's an online game that requires doing things in real life and has real life consequences. And this was a fairly long book. It was almost 500 pages. But what I love is that it has short chapters, and most of the chapters like left on like, you know, just a bit of a cliffhanger that makes you like really want to keep reading. So for being long, it was really fast-paced. This book did have a lot of themes of religion and morality, and also trigger warnings for mental illness, depression, suicide, abuse, and loss of a loved one. And this group of friends, the Vindicators, was racially, socially, and sexually diverse, which was good, and did add some layers to the story. And I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I have decided in 2020 we are starting to do half-star ratings, even though Goodreads needs to get with it and doesn't support that on their platform. But I am starting to use the Google Docs that were created by Allie. Her channel is Hardback Hoarder. You already know her, I'm sure, if you're watching me. And on her spreadsheets, there are options for half-star ratings. So I want to utilize that so that I'm really seeing a reflection of how I'm feeling about these books without feeling like I need to round up or down using Goodreads. And the spreadsheets will be exciting because it'll help me keep track of more monthly stats to let you guys know, and be able to give me a whole overall picture at the end of the year of a lot of nerdy bookish things that you want to keep track of. Well, there you have it. That's the rest of the books I read in the month of December. Finished off the decade strong. Comment down below and let me know what your favorite book you read in December was, and if you participated in any readathons. Down below are my social media links. You can be my friend on other platforms. Go ahead and subscribe to see more of me and check out some of my other videos. And until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!